Viktor Frankl kept Nietzsche close. He quoted him frequently, assigned him seriously to students, and credited him as one of the clearest diagnosticians of the modern existential condition. He also disagreed with him on the most fundamental question. The disagreement was not about nihilism, which both took seriously. It was not about the death of traditional meaning structures, which both recognized. It was about what fills the void. Nietzsche's answer was the will to power. Not power in the crude sense of domination, but in the broader sense of self-overcoming, the relentless drive to expand one's capacities, to impose one's values, to become more. The Übermensch, Nietzsche's idealized human, creates their own meaning precisely because they have the strength to refuse the meanings given to them by culture, religion, or morality. The will to power is the engine of authentic selfhood. Frankl's answer was the will to meaning. And his critique of Nietzsche was both philosophical and clinical. The philosophical critique, power, without direction, is not meaning. The capacity to impose your will tells you nothing about whether you should impose it, in what direction, toward what end. The Nietzschean framework is structurally silent about this question, the most important question. It valorizes the strength of the drive without addressing the validity of its object. A person who pursues power over others with intensity and intelligence is, by the will to power standard, living authentically. Frankl found this conclusion unacceptable. The clinical critique was more concrete. His consulting room received, over the decades, a steady stream of patients who had achieved exactly what the will to power framework valorizes: professional dominance, financial control, social authority. Executives who had built empires. Professionals who had beaten every competitor. People who had, by every external measure, won. And they were sitting across from Frankl, describing a vacancy at the center of their lives that no further achievement could address. Power had delivered everything it promised. And what it had delivered was not enough. This was, for Frankl, not a moral judgment about these patients. It was a diagnostic finding. The will to power, pursued as an end in itself, does not converge on meaning. It can be a means. Power over circumstances may be necessary to achieve meaningful ends, but it cannot be the goal without generating exactly the existential vacuum it was supposed to fill. He placed the will to power in a genealogy alongside Alfred Adler's inferiority compensation drive. Both Adler and Nietzsche, Frankl argued, had identified secondary motivations, real drives that genuinely operate in human behavior, and mistaken them for the primary one. We do seek power. We do seek to compensate for feelings of inadequacy. But we seek these things, at a deeper level, because we believe they will provide meaning. Strip away the meaning-seeking function, and both drives become self-defeating. The will to meaning is different from the will to power in one structural respect. It is inherently other-directed. Meaning, in Frankl's account, is always found in relation to something beyond the self, a person, a task, a value, a cause. The will to power is inherently self-amplifying. It returns always to the question of what the self can achieve, claim, or control. These two orientations produce, over a lifetime, different kinds of people, and different kinds of suffering. The Nietzschean figure, strong, self-creating, beyond conventional meaning, appears throughout Frankl's clinical writing as a cautionary type rather than an ideal. The person who has dedicated their life to self-overcoming and arrived at the summit finds that the summit is empty. What they needed was not to be stronger. What they needed was something to be strong for. Subscribe to The Psychology of Viktor Frankl to explore more of his timeless ideas.